In episode 143 of the Guitar Music Theory podcast, I explain how to use a major 2 chord. Greetings, guitar engineers. Welcome to the Guitar Music Theory podcast. I am your host, Desi Cerna. And today I'm going to talk about how to use a major 2 chord. You know, when you harmonize the major scale, you get this sequence of major and minor chords, and the 2 chord is naturally minor. I'm going to talk about its use in its natural form, but sometimes it's used as a major chord. And this can confuse people who are studying music theory because they're like, hey, that's not the way it's naturally built in the scale. Why does this work? Why does it sound so good? Well, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you some song examples, including American Girl, 8 Days a Week, and others. It's going to be a great discussion. This will be helpful if you want to train your ear to recognize chord changes that happen in music. It'll also be something that might provide some inspiration to you if you like to compose your own music. Now, before we dive in, I want to direct all of my listeners over to my website, guitarmusictheory.com. What do you specifically need to be working on right now in order to become a better guitar player? Well, I can help. Go to the website, answer the question I ask you about your playing, and I'll send you free custom video instruction that's calibrated to your current level. Whether you're a beginner still needing to learn the basics, or you need help with bar chords, finger picking, playing lead, or learning a particular style, I have a free video course for you. I can put you on a plan to fill gaps in your knowledge and fill gaps in your playing so you can move forward and reach your music goals. Go enroll in your free video course at guitarmusictheory.com now. You can click on the link in the podcast show notes. All right, we are ready to dive in. Actually, a few things to discuss before we get into today's topic. I mentioned in some previous podcast episodes that I was going to perform with an act called The Heart of Rock and Roll, which is America's #1 tribute to Huey Lewis and the News. Well, that performance went really well. It was at the City Winery in Nashville, Tennessee last month in July. And if you'd like to see some clips or some pictures, if you go to Desi Cerna Guitar on either Instagram or Facebook, some friends had sent me some cell phone video clips and stuff, and I put them together and posted like a 10-minute video, and you can see what that live performance was like. And then I have a daughter who's into photography, and she took some photos, and they look great too. So you can go check that out. Give me a little bit of love, click like, comment, all that good stuff. It was a great show. Everything went really well. Really cool venue. The crowd was just fantastic, and there was a lot of energy in the room, both with the band and the audience. And it was so much fun for me. It was pretty stressful getting prepared for that because I had to learn the whole 2-hour show. The first time I had played with the band, there was no rehearsal. They sent me all the files and everything I needed to get prepared for their show, including a video of a previous show that they had done with another guitar player. And the expectation is that I would come in and know all my parts. They gave me, a detailed explanation of generally what my parts were. Like, you're taking the overdriven parts on this song, you take the lead and that sort of thing. They didn't provide me with tablature or any sheet music for my specific parts. I had to figure that stuff out on my own. I worked some stuff out by ear. I was able to find some tabs online at Ultimate Guitar that helped. I was able to watch some live performances and stuff to pick up on some other things. And then I was able to email with some of the other band members just to clarify some parts, particularly when we were all playing harmony parts. And I was like, okay, well, what am I playing? What's the other guitar player playing? What's the sax player playing? But anyway, I put a lot of work into preparing for that, and I was very pleased with how well things went on my end. The band was great. And long story short, they asked if I would do some other dates with them. So right now, what we have on the books is November 4th, Temple Theater in Portland, Tennessee, and November 5th, Franklin Theater in Franklin, Tennessee. So I'll be playing guitar for those shows. I'm looking forward to it. I love the music. I love the Huey Lewis catalog. I was a little disappointed to find out that my role in the band was to do all the overdriven and lead stuff, because I love all that clean, chorusy rhythm guitar stuff in these songs. But you know what? The overdriven stuff is great. The leads are great as well. Everything's great in the music. So, but that's the role that I play. I believe I'm covering the parts that were typically played by guitarist Chris Hayes when they performed live. So head over to Desi Cerna Guitar on Facebook or Instagram, and you can see those video clips and you can see those photographs. All right. Next thing I wanted to mention is that I have recently completed a course that trains you to play worship guitar. This is something that is not publicly posted on my website. This is something for my members in the member area. It's a paid course. I walk you through the different ways that I approach Sunday morning worship songs on acoustic, electric, and bass. I've worked with students like this over the years, and I decided to put a course together. If this sounds like something that might be of interest to you, and you have not received an email, you haven't received any type of notification about it, just go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, scroll down, click on that contact link, and shoot me a message and say, hey, you mentioned that you have some training for people who are trying to learn how to play the worship style. Can you send me that? And I will send you some information and how you could purchase access to that course. Finally, the last thing I want to mention is that today's topic is also available as a video lesson. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I think it's even on TikTok. So go to any one of those platforms, just search Desi Cerna Guitar. You'll see my latest video, or you could just search Desi Cerna using a major 2 chord, and then the video should come up and you can watch that. And I've got some extra things in the video that might make this lesson make more sense. But we're going to talk about it today, and I think you'll find it helpful. And no visuals here in this audio-only podcast, but that will probably serve our ears well. You'll be forced to use your ears. So let's get started here. Playing my PRS SE Angelus acoustic electric guitar. I'm plugged into my Aura Spectrum acoustic DI. All right, so let's talk about the 2 chord. And before we do that, probably have to back up. So when you harmonize the major scale by stacking its notes, we get this sequence of chords that follows a particular pattern. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor flat 5, and now I'm back to the original chord, the major chord there. I'm in the key of E here, using notes from the E major scale, and specifically in this key, that sequence of chords is E major, and then F sharp minor, G sharp minor, A, B, C sharp minor, D sharp minor, flat 5, E. Now the second chord, or the 2 chord, as we say in music, musicians say the 2 chord, it's naturally minor. And if we write this out, we could use Roman numerals, and we would use 2 lowercase letter i's for 2. Lowercase Roman numerals indicate minor chords. Uppercase Roman numerals represent major chords. And we use that in music when we're discussing chords like this. and it's used as like a little shorthand to chart songs. It can be part of the Nashville number system. Sometimes we'll use Arabic numbers, just a regular number 2 followed by a minus sign. So 2 minus sign, 2 minor. Now, many songs use the minor 2 chord. I'm going to talk about using it as a major chord. But before we do that, let's talk about songs that would actually use it in its natural form as a minor, because it does get used this way. Sometimes guitar players are not really familiar with using chords 2 and 3, because in music, chords 1, 4, and 5, and 6 are used all the time. We all know 1, 4, 5 songs, and if a minor chord is in the progression, it's usually 6. And 90% of popular music, whether it's country, pop, rock, even worship music, it's all 1, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 5, 6, 4, some combination of those chords. And so some people get so used to those chords and that pattern that they don't even realize that, you can complete the scale with, there's other chords in there. So the 2 chord is used, and I want to give you a couple examples. The first one would be the song Don't Let Me Down by the Beatles. And I'm going to pull up a little backing track I have here. It's in E. So, and it's going to the 2 chord right here.
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
And that was the 5 chord back to the 1 chord.
Don't let me down.
So 2 chord. 5, 5, 5, 1. I'm going to switch keys here to give you another example. I'll move to the key of G. So my 1 chord is G, the 2 chord is A minor, and my next example is the song Sweet City Woman by Stampeders. Here's a backing track, or karaoke track. I'm trying to keep the copyright police off my back, so I don't want to use the original recordings here. This is a great song though. So this is the 1 chord G, 2 chord A minor, still the 2 chord A minor, and then back to G. Just like that, it repeats. So 1, think do, re. You want to use solfege, you're going up the scale, do, re, 1. I'm going to switch keys again. Let's go up to the key of A. 1 chord is A, 2 chord is B minor, 4 chord in this key is D, and those chords are used in the song What's Up by 4 Non-Blondes. Here's a fake version of it.
And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath.
Chord 2,
real high at night.
chord 4,
Scream from the top of my lungs, what's
and then back to 1. Then it repeats.
and I said,
So 1, 2, 4, 1. I don't normally use solfege. Why am I talking about solfege? Some people ask me about it. Maybe it's helpful for you. I prefer to just say numbers. I'm just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I like to do. 1, 2, 4, 1. So those are just a couple examples of songs that use the minor 2 chord. Wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to pull those songs up on your own and play along with them a little bit just to help it kind of sink in and cement in your ear there. Like I said, chords 1, 4, 5, and 6 are used so much we get used to those. We sometimes forget that, oh yeah, there's a 2 chord that can be used. And if you're someone that likes to be creative and make up your own music or write songs, you probably are using a lot of 1, 4, 5, and 6 because it's so common, but maybe you want to do something a little bit different. So by playing through some of these song examples, you might get some inspiration to take your song or your melody in a slightly different direction. You're still staying in key. It's still diatonic, as we'd say. It's of the scale. All right, I want to move on now and talk about using two chords, playing them as major instead of minor, and why that happens. So while the two chord is naturally minor, sometimes it's played as major instead. And I'm going to go back to the key of E. Give you an example of this, and an example would be the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem. When you play it in the key of E, those changes there, I was playing over an E chord, and then I went to the 2 chord F sharp, but instead of playing it as minor, like it's supposed to be in the key, I played it as major. And then I went to the 5 chord B. Okay, so in this case, what's happening, and why is that F sharp major? What's happening here is the F sharp is acting as what's called a secondary dominant that's leading to that 5 chord B. What is a secondary dominant? Well, let's think about the key of B for a second. The B scale. In the key of B, B is chord 1, F sharp major is chord 5. The 5 chord in a key is called the dominant, or the 5th degree of the scale is called the dominant. So F sharp would be the dominant 5 chord in the key of B. And the dominant 5 chord naturally kind of pushes and resolves to the tonic chord B. It's got its major third as a leading tone. So that's a sharp there. That's a half step lead in to the tonic B. F sharp, B, dominant 5 chord 1. So that relationship and that movement can be used when you're not in the key of B. So in the key of E, F sharp is the 2 chord and is normally minor. However, if you're going to go from the 1 chord in the key of E to the 5 chord B, you can borrow an F sharp major from the key of B and use that sound to lead to B while you're in the key of E. And that's what's happening here in Star Spangled Banner. And it sounds good. So that's a secondary dominant. That's the reason why that chord is major, and that's the reason why it works. Let's move on to another example. I'm going to switch keys to C. C is the 1 chord, the 2 chord is D minor, but I'm going to play a major 2 chord, D major, and I'm going to use this in the song Hey Good Lookin' by Hank Williams. You know that one? Hey, good lookin', what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me? So that's a C chord. And then I went to D major, G, and then C. So C is 1, D is 2, G is 5. D would normally be minor, but in this case it was played as a major, and it was used to lead to G, and that makes sense because if you think about the G scale, D is the dominant 5 chord in the key of G. So we could use that function in other keys. It's a secondary dominant here in the key of C. Let's do another example. Let's switch to the key of G. And let's think about the song Patience by Guns N' Roses. It's played in the position of G, although they have their guitars tuned down a half step. I'm going to just stay in standard tuning here. But I'm thinking about the verses here. I shed a tear 'cause I'm missing you. I'm still alright to smile. Girl, I think about you every day now. All right. right. So I'm in the key of G here, and that was C, G, A major, D. By number, that's 4, 1, 2, 5. Normally the 2 chord would be minor, A minor, but in this case they played A major and followed it with D, and that makes sense because in the key of D, A is the dominant 5 chord that leads to D, so we're borrowing that. It's a secondary dominant here. Shed a tear 'cause I'm missing you. I'm still alright to smile. Dominant 2 chord. Girl, I think about you every day now. I said dominant 2 chord. Usually when you say dominant, it could also imply that you're playing a dominant 7th. But dominant, secondary dominant 2 chord is what I meant to say there. And we're using that function, a major chord there, to lead into the D. Okay, so just to review, we talked about some songs where you would use the natural minor 2 chord. We talked about how you would use the major 2 chord as a secondary dominant, leading from 2 to 5, as if you were going 5 to 1, borrowing from what happens in other keys. Well, now I want to talk about how you would use a major 2 chord, but it's not a secondary dominant. You're not using it for its dominant leading function. And a good example of this would be the song 8 Days a Week by the Beatles. It's in the key of D, and we have the following chord changes. Ooh, I need your love, babe. Yes, you know it's true. Hope you need my love, babe. Just like I need you. So those chords there are D, E major, G, and D. Those are chords 1, 2, 4, 1 in the D scale. Well, normally chord 2 would be minor, but in this case it's major. It's not used as a secondary dominant. That E major is not pushing to, like the 5 chord in the key of D, A, which is what happened in our previous examples. Instead, that major 2 chord is followed by the 4 chord, and then it goes back to D. So in this case, no dominant function here. Instead, that major 2 chord is kind of creating this bright, uplifting sound, you know? Ooh, I need your love, babe. Yes, you know it's true. The same thing happens in Tom Petty's American Girl. Well, she was an American girl, raised on promises. Same changes except for you go to A at the end. So it's D, E, G, A. Or by number, that's 1, 2, 4, 5. So again, we're not using that major 2 chord E for dominant function, secondary dominant. Instead, it's got this cool, uplifting, bright sort of sound. Yeah, she was raised on promises. So when a major 2 chord is in use like this, you could actually think of it as some temporary Lydian mode. So let's talk about that. So D Lydian mode would be the 4th mode of the A major scale. So we need to think A major scale. And if we play those notes in chords, but we start on the 4th degree D, we get the D Lydian mode. Again, it's just the notes of the A scale. It's the chords of the A scale too. So think about playing an A scale. We'd have, A major, B minor, C sharp minor, D major, E major, F sharp minor. Well, if we're in D Lydian mode, we're just starting on the D. So we have D major, E major. So boom, there's that D and E major that are together. So in songs like American Girl and 8 Days a Week, we temporarily have some Lydian mode there. You can think about that sharp fourth interval. That's the kind of a characteristic sound of the Lydian mode. It's the major third of that E. It's what makes that E major. D major with an F sharp, E major with a G sharp. So we temporarily have some Lydian mode here while that E major chord is in use, and then once you go to G or G and A, you're back to just plain D. So you're going back and forth between like plain D major and D Lydian mode. And this is a common composition technique. It's called modal mixture or modal interchange, and it's where you would mix chords from parallel scales. A parallel scale would be different scales that all start in the same pitch. So D major scale and D Lydian mode are parallel scales. The D major scale would have an E minor in it. The D Lydian mode would have an E major in it. So when you're in the key of D, you can think about what other types of D scales or what other types of D keys have chords in it that I might borrow and mix into this key. So that's what's happening there. D, E, temporary Lydian mode, and then just back to regular D major there. For another example of using a major 2 chord like this, I want to introduce you to the song Headin' to the Beach by Carl Wayne Meekins. You can find this newly released song on Apple Music, Spotify. I'm listening to it on YouTube. And I'm bringing attention to this song because Carl Wayne Meekins is a friend of mine, and he wrote and recorded this song here locally, and I think I probably know most or many of the musicians that were involved with tracking this song and producing it. So, 1 chord D, major 2 chord, 4 chord, A, 5 chord, so 1 chord D, E major, E. So here's the chorus.
I'm heading to the beach, somewhere in hard for me. I'm leaving my cares behind, gonna unwind and let the sun leave a mark on me. I'm heading to the beach, where I can't be reached. And if my work tries to call, I'll think, sorry, all I won't let them get to me. 'Cause I'm heading
So
to the beach.
1 chord D major, E major, major 2 chord, 4 chord, back to the 1.
Been driving on the road about half.
And a quick little 5, 1, back to 1. So that's Headin' to the Beach by Carl Wayne Meekins. Check that out. If you watch it on like YouTube or something, click like, leave a comment, encourage him. I thought he did a great job on that song. Proud of him, and really blessed to know all the people that helped produce that song and all the wonderful musicians that are here in my area in Nashville, Tennessee, and how talented they are. All right, one more thing I want to talk about while we're on this topic of playing major 2 chords is the chromatic voice leading that can take place. So let's stay in the same key here. Let's take the changes D, E, G, and let's go back to D at the end here. So check this out. The D chord has an A in it. The E chord has a G sharp in it. The G chord has a G natural in it. And when you return to D, it has an F sharp in it. So we have these descending semitones. A, G sharp, G, F sharp. Listen for it. So the fact that we have this, these chromatic half steps, or this chromatic voice leading, as we call it in music theory, is one reason why these changes work well together. They're connected with this half step movement here. you can create a nice sound if you take those half steps and you put them in the upper register, the upper voicings of the chord. So that's A, G sharp, G natural, F sharp. So now I'll play the chords D, E, G, D, and I'm going to finger them and position them in a manner so that I can get these notes on top of each chord shape. So here's a version of D with an A on top. Here's a E fingering with a G sharp on top. Here's a G fingering with a G on top. And here's a D fingering with an F sharp on top. And if you go watch the video I made for this lesson, you can see the particular voice fingerings that I'm using here. So are you hearing that up top there? It's neat how those chromatic steps tie these chords together. I could even do something interesting here, and I could pedal on the open D string. If you're a writer, a composer, or you just like to make up music and jam, maybe you're getting inspired here and you hear some ideas. So we started with American Girl and 8 Days a Week here, what seemed like a pretty basic chord change, E, D, E, G, but now we're thinking about the chromatic voice leading that occurs inside those chord voicings and how you can voice your fingerings to really draw that out. Then you can sustain the D the whole time. Sound that you're making there. This is why it's so much fun to learn about music theory and explore things and analyze things, because if you want to be creative and have fun, you can get ideas from songs like this and take things in different directions. What's neat about these changes is that we're actually going up from chord 1 to 2 to 4. We're going up. 1, 2, 4. But that chromatic voice leading is going down. So it's like, let's do, and then we go back to. So anyway, going up in this direction and then going down in the other direction. So that's cool too, you know. That happens quite a bit in music. I might be taking things a little off track here, but think about Stairway to Heaven, how you have notes that go down, and then you have notes that go up, and it's happening at the same time. So you're going down and up, you know, so cool. So we have something similar happening here with those changes 1, 2, 4, and that chromatic line that is going backward. All right, podcast episode 143 is a wrap. So hopefully now you're more familiar with using that 2 chord in its natural minor form, in its major form as a secondary dominant, and then in its major form as kind of a temporary Lydian mode that creates an uplifting sound. I've given you some examples of some great songs that you could look up and learn and strum along with. That will just help train your ear, help you learn the fretboard and chord movement, and hopefully give you some inspiration that you can use in your own compositions. Don't forget to go to my Facebook page or my YouTube channel or my Instagram. Just search Desi Cerna Guitar. Make sure you're following me, and then you can search for this video using the major 2 chord, and you can watch my video lesson on that. And also don't forget, if you have not yet enrolled in a free video course on my website, go to guitarmusictheory.com, answer the question I ask you about your playing, and I will send you free custom video instruction that's calibrated to your current level. Whether you're a beginner still needing to learn the basics, or you need help with bar chords, finger picking, playing lead, or learning a particular style, I have a free course for you. I'll put you on a plan so that you can fill gaps in your knowledge and fill gaps in your playing, so you can move forward and reach your music goals. Enroll in your free video course now at guitarmusictheory.com. You can click on the link in the podcast show notes. Don't forget, I've got a brand new course to help you get prepared for Sunday morning services. I show you how I approach worship music on acoustic, electric, and bass. This is a paid course. It's only available to people in my member area. If you did not get a notification about that, go to the website, click on the contact link, send me a message, tell me that you're interested, and I can send that information to you. Finally, you need to check out my socials so you can see the great pictures my daughter took as I performed with the band The Heart of Rock and Roll, America's #1 tribute to Huey Lewis and the News. And there's some video clips on there as well that you'll probably enjoy watching. All right, I've said enough. Thanks for listening. I'm Desi Cerna. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and leave a good review if you can. Then keep playing and stay tuned for more.